You're listening to Faith Connections podcast, where we are dedicated to connecting you to your faith. And now your hosts, Chris and Mari Torres.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to Faith Connections. Chris and Mari
Torres.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. I know last Tuesday we finished, we kind of did a little two-part series of It's Not the End. And today we're going to really talk about, we've been talking a lot about the mental challenges and struggles and really kind of digging a little bit deeper and talking about, we talked about depression, we talked about anxiety, we talked about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and we talked about suicide, right? And so one of the things that really stood out that we were talking about is like the emotions, like and how that really affects the mental state is the emotion part of it. And you can't really dismiss the emotion part of what you're going through. I think it's a big part.
It's the human aspect.
It's the yes, right. So we have to acknowledge that and learn that. But man, we want to talk about, okay, so how do you kind of bring it back? How do you reset? And so that's what we're going to talk about is, man, how do you reset? How do you reset? How do you bring it back and are able to, okay, kind of take a step back, reflect.
When do you use a reset?
Yeah. And when do you use a reset?
And why would you use a reset?
Yes. So I love definitions because I feel like when you know what a word means, you have you gain a deeper understanding of it.
More context.
Yes, you get more context. So reset means to set again or differently. So you're resetting something, right? You're restarting something. You start a timer. You might be resetting it again, right? Or you might be doing it resetting again, but in a different manner. Okay. Biblical reset. It refers to returning to basic state. It's pivoting to God's original purpose. I think about when I was reading this, I think about when we're trying to do things our way and God's like, nope.
Bring it back.
Right? Bring it back. It's like, okay, let me reset because this is not working. What I'm doing is not working and it's evident. But the Hebrew word for reset, it literally means bring back to zero, back to square one. Have you heard that?
No.
Bring it back to zero. Bring it back to
I've
square
heard that,
one.
yes, but I didn't know that's what the Hebrew
Yeah,
word
that's the
was.
Hebrew. That's what it literally means is to bring back to zero. That's a reset.
Reset.
Right? When you think about a timer, it's like, oh, let me get it started again. You started at zero. And I think sometimes when we're going through whatever situations we're going through, life,
Stressors,
man, everything, it's like, okay, we got to reset. We got to bring it back to zero and start back to basic state.
And why are we even talking about this is because I'm just reflecting. We've had a rough week. The last week was pretty rough for us.
It is. And I feel like, it's gotten better, but we're still dealing with, some of the effects or some of the
after effects.
After effects. And it's like, man, I feel like I can't even catch a break.
Yeah.
It's like, and I need a reset. I need a reset, emotionally, spiritually, physically. I'm like, man, I really need to stay consistent with working out because I feel like I've.
So a reset may sound familiar and it might sound alike recharge, but recharge is a little bit different because you're just getting more energy, more strength.
Correct.
Whereas a reset, in my opinion, from what I gathered as I was prepping for it, was getting a different perspective on things. And I'm going to read some scriptures here, but like you said, we tend to do things our way, so we slowly start veering off the path and from God's will. So we're veering this way. So a reset puts us right back on the trajectory and on that line, which is God's path and God's will for us. So with emotions, we've had last week highs and lows of emotions.
Yeah. Feel like a roller coaster, right?
Excitement because we finally felt like we got our eldest across the line for graduation.
Yes.
So we were feeling like good, proud parents, and like any parents would.
Oh
So
yeah,
we're at-
elated. Like, oh, it just so the most wonderful feeling.
We're at the peak of
Especially
the
when
mou-
it's the first time you're experiencing it. Such as
We're at the peak of the mountain.
Yes.
And then we step off the ledge, and then here we are in the valley now. It's like, how did we go from the top? And now we're in the valley, and it's like we're trying to make our way channel through that valley.
Man, I don't think you could have explained that better.
Yeah, 'cause you're at
That's
the-
exactly
Yeah.
okay.
You took
just,
one bad step, and boom, there you're off the
you
cliff.
just described exactly the feeling,
Mm-hmm.
the feeling of being at that high point, and just everything's great, and you're
Mm-hmm.
just feeling good, and then you can go from feeling that great and being at that high place to just quickly. I mean,
down in that valley.
man, not even from 1 minute to the next, from 1 second to the next, like even that quickly, just like you said, falling off the ledge, and then something happens that just kind of, changes things.
But I think the reset has been very key to us, is that we look at the big picture, right? What could we have done better? What did we do wrong? And so forth, right? We analyze everything.
Yeah.
What did we do wrong? What could we have done better? And what is going right? So
Yeah.
we stay on those positive things, right?
Yeah.
So we build on those
And
positive
I actually have an acronym for reset. So
acronym.
yeah. So
I like acronyms.
Reset, yes. So R, the first thing you want to do is reflect. So we don't just immediately jump. I mean, the emotions will, and I'm going to keep it real, right? The emotions will sometimes get us to react a certain way in the moment.
It's our flesh.
It's our flesh. And I feel like sometimes it does, and then sometimes it doesn't. I think sometimes, depending on the circumstance, you might not even react. You're shocked, you're in shock, or you don't even know how to react, right? It's just, I mean, it could vary. It could go from feeling sad, angry, upset to, just a different level of emotions, right? But the first thing when you're thinking about bringing it back to zero is you need to reflect. Right? You kind of, you reflect. Okay, let me reflect
Yes.
on my situation, on my circumstance, on what's happening. You reflect on it, you ponder on it.
Yes.
The second thing is you need to establish. So establish, what's happening, establish
Positive and negative things.
positive, negative, like, okay, this needs to change. Okay, maybe I need to do this, or I need to reach out for help, or I'm struggling, and maybe this is not where my support system is. I need to seek additional help, or you need to establish different things, whatever that may be, depending on your situation.
A game plan.
It's
Establish your game
you start establishing different things, and you may be writing this down. You may be talking this out with someone, a very close person that, that you can confide in, or whatever the case may be. The S, so RE, so reflect, establish. S is you need to speak. You need to be able to share your experience. You need to be able to say,
Communicate.
and say whatever is on your mind, because if you hold it in, man, that's going to,
It eats away at you.
it will eat away at you,
and it'll still peek out later.
it will.
Because
It'll
you're
manifest in
suppressing.
different ways.
Yes,
Yeah.
you
And that's what happens in relationships. It's like, think
Suppress
about, and
feelings.
me and you used to do this all the time. But I remember me and you.
Why are you including me in this?
No, we used
It
to
was
do
more
this.
You.
Okay. See, he's doing it again. I'm just kidding.
That's a good example.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
All right.
So no, but I remember, and I'm guilty of it, but we used to do this all the time. So let's just say, you did something, I don't know, a month ago, right? Or whatever. You did something that upset me, and maybe I didn't say anything. So you didn't know that I was upset about whatever you did, right? And so then we're arguing a month later about something, and then I'm bringing up that very thing
That you never mentioned.
that I never mentioned,
And I'm
right?
just learning about
Yeah, I just as we're talking these things out, it's like reminding me of couples and how they do that, right? Because why they don't speak, they don't share, they don't they don't say anything. They just kind of hold it in and keep it. And there's time there. I feel like there's a time to do that, because sometimes you're like, you don't want to, you got to think before you speak, right? But I feel like after you reflect and you establish and you kind of think things through, then it's important that you're able to share,
on it.
to speak, that you say something, right? Say what's on
Right,
your
right.
mind. Okay. SSS. Share, speak, say what's on your mind. It means the same thing, right? Okay. So reflect, establish, speak, say what's on your mind, share. The E is express and experiment. So it can go, you could mix those two. Express, right? You continue to express whatever it is that you're, you know, what's on your mind. But experiment. So experiment different ways. I feel like
Try new
sometimes
methods.
try new methods. So, okay, if this is not working, then I need to try something different, right? There needs to be some sort of change in whatever it is that you're doing. Your goals, maybe you need to tweak them. Maybe you haven't given enough time. Maybe you're quickly giving up. Oh, you know, think about people who want to lose weight. Well, man, that transformation is not going to happen. They always say, like, you know, summer bodies are made in the winter.
Built overnight.
Well, Rome wasn't built in a day. But also, too, like people that are like, oh, like me, let's just say we're going to go on vacation in August. Oh, I want to get fit. And, oh, that summer body needed to be happening in December, not, you know, not in May.
Not in July.
Yeah, in May or June, July, you know, whatever the case may be. So, yes, so experiment, continue to experiment, you know, change things up. If something's not working, hey, let me try something different. And then the T is trust the process. Trust the process.
I love that one.
Trust the process. There's 3, but trust the process.
I'm big on that.
It takes time. So it takes time, right? You can't, things don't happen overnight. It just doesn't happen that way. And then for us is we got to trust God. We have to trust God. So even though we've had a very difficult last week and we're just feeling a little bit of the after effects. Oh man, I trust God completely. Like there's no doubt in my mind that he's got this, right? That he's handling whatever situation it is that we're facing.
I really like that, the whole reset. You're going to have to share that with me because you just earned kudo points right now, making me look bad on the podcast. I like that one. That's really good. Reset, man. That's really good. And I'm very big on trusting the process. I share that all the time. I always say that, you know, even with Little League Baseball, as I'm coaching, we got to trust the process, right? You know, so I'm always saying it, even when I'm just watching TV or whatever, I'm always saying, you know, but that's really good. That I like that acronym. But reflection is really key here because you're able to see, you kind of take a step back, take a breather, and all these points tie in together. Yeah. Because if you take a step back and you look at the big picture, what went well, what didn't go well, and then that's where you can mesh and experiment. Well, this worked pretty good, so let's keep this. This didn't work so good. Let's get rid of that, but let's try this now. So that's where the experiment. So I like it because it all ties in and it connects.
I want to share a story in the Bible real quick. We're not going to read the story, but I just want to. It reminds me of reset. God did this, and God is God, you know. And I know that there was a method to his madness, and I mean he knows everything, higher. And so you know we and I get that, but the story that comes to mind is Noah, right? And, you know, I feel like, okay, there was all these bad things happening. And there was, of course, the human race just being so wicked that God's like, man, you know, it's kind of like our situation. I'm done. You know, what is going on here? Like, why can't y'all just get it right?
Right.
Right. And I know we feel like that. Like, man, what is this world coming to? Or, man, I'm just done with this or that or whatever. And God's like, man, I'm done. I'm going to wipe y'all out. And that's exactly what he did with the flood. Right. And so
and he only spared Noah and his family.
He did. So he chose, people who, you know, the family that he's, you're good. Okay. So he went through that process. We know the story. Right. And, but what continued to happen? I mean, he tried it. And then he promised to never do it again because he's like, okay, well, apparently I'm going to have to try something different because this didn't work. Right. So I'm sure he went through this process. He reflected, he established, he was there speaking to himself like, this is not working, you know, and he's experimenting and then he's trusting the process. And then what did he do? He sent his son. And that was the only way, you know, that he could finally, you know, reverse that curse.
Right, man. That is a good story. And that's definitely a good reset right there. Because reset doesn't necessarily mean to start completely over. because you've already established and gone that far. What it just simply means is that from this point forward, I'm going to try something different. I think that's the difference too between a reset and starting over. We don't want people to think, man, I have to start all over. They're like, well, I'm dealing with my stress. How do I start all over? I can't go back and change what's already transpired.
Yeah.
Correct. You can't. But from that point forward,
Yeah.
you make a difference now. So this is what's say it's work related. You did something wrong. You got written up at work by your supervisor, right? Because we've all been there, right? Yeah, I share that one because. But does it mean that you get fired and you have to go find a whole new job? No, you just got in trouble. You got written up. It's a corrective action by your supervisor. But from that point forward, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You have to make a difference. So it's not necessarily mean you're starting all over. It just simply means you're resetting.
Correct.
And now you move forward and change things up, right? So same thing with life. When it comes to our mental health, with the stressors of life, mental wellness, we have to have a reset,
Yeah.
right? And for me, I've said this before in the podcast, and I'll continue to say it. A reset could simply mean also very similar to taking a break, but in my opinion, is picking up a hobby. You pick a hobby because sometimes that is going to break away from the monotony, from the repetitiveness, from whatever is causing you to keep going in that vicious cycle. Kind of like when I learned Old Testament, they call it the transgressional period because it just kept happening over and over and over. And it's kind of like putting something in the dryer and just putting in spin. It's just going to keep going until you stop it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what a reset is. So for me, having a hobby plays a pivotal role in having a reset. Because sometimes it's a distraction from what's actually happening. But sometimes while you're doing your hobby, it brings perspective into what just happened.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying some people might be into art. So painting, that's a stress relieving thing, right? You paint and do whatever. For me, it's riding horses, but being on horseback away from everybody while everything's quiet out on the trail,
Yeah.
I get a mental reset.
Yeah.
I get to.
And I mean, we see it. We were talking about this yesterday. You're like, man, I feel good because you had time, and you were one with your horse.
I went out for a trail ride by myself,
and so you were like, man, I feel good. Like I love when I'm able to have this moment and to be able to just kind of reset, bring things back to zero, square one, be one with nature. But
now we're ready to tackle the week because
Yes.
I know Monday's coming.
Yes.
We all hate. We all get the case of the Mondays.
He hates Mondays. No, but I think a lot of people hate Mondays because I'm not a big fan of Mondays
Why are
either.
you lying to the people? You tell me you love Mondays.
I don't love Mondays.
We love Fridays.
Yeah, because if
ready
you're
for
off
the
on
week.
Saturday, yeah, you love Fridays. You're off the weekends.
Okay. But a reset, okay? And that's what Fridays are for the working Monday through Friday workers.
Yeah.
Friday is the last day of your work week, and the weekend is the reset, right?
Like,
for the
I
work
gotta go
week.
back on Monday.
Right. So that you think about it in a work perspective, that's what the weekend's for. It's a reset. So you come back on Monday and you hit it again.
Yeah.
Well, our mental health has to have a reset as well.
It does.
Our mental wellness needs a reset as well. So maybe you're going to the same therapist and you're not seeing results, or you're not getting the satisfaction that you would like. Well, it might be time to experiment with a different therapist. This medication is not working for me. I'm not getting the result that I want with this medication.
Yes.
So being off of medication is not an answer. Well, I'm going to stop taking medication because this one's not working for me.
Yeah, it's finding the right
It's
one.
finding the right medication because I'm sure there's
that.
different. Just you think about diabetics. I mean, you got Trulicity, you got Ozempic, you got, I don't know how many more are out there.
Manjaro.
Manjaro. So I'm just throwing it out there. I see all the commercials on TV.
Pills.
I just saw another one, Magoni, or I don't know, it's a weird name. But I saw,
what's the pill for? Metformin.
I'm saying,
Good.
yeah, but I'm just saying that you see all the commercials on TV, right? There's always a medication for this and for that. So you go try something different.
Yeah.
It's a reset. You're trying something.
You just
different.
reminded me of, like, even with fibromyalgia, and me, they started with me antidepressants, right? But I had side effects. So it's like, ooh, this one didn't work. And I tried it. So then they slowly weaned me off this one, and then they gave me a different one. And then I started that one. I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling, side effects. And then they slowly weaned me off this one. And they finally gave me, it was the third try. Third try worked, right?
Third was a
So
try.
yeah, so I was like, okay, this one's manageable, low dose. I can figure out how I can help. But yeah, I mean, man, you make a valid point. I think, you asked the question is like, okay, well, so we talked about what reset is. We talked about the importance and kind of the acronym, but like, you're right. It's not just, and I think we have to consider the physical, the mental, the spiritual aspect of a reset. So you might need a physical reset, you might need a mental reset, you might need a spiritual reset, and you might need all three. And honestly, you need all three all together.
Yes.
Because what you put in your
All
body
three are one, and that's you.
It is. Because what you put in your body affects you no matter what. If you're not eating healthy or taking care of yourself, right? Then you're going to feel sluggish. If you're not getting quality of sleep, you're not going to feel good. All of that counteracts each other, right? Like it affects you in some sort of way. Mental, if you're stressed, that in itself will increase, certain, your blood pressure. I know like for me with my hormones, your cortisol levels, right? Different things. I know for me, my fibromyalgia, if I'm at a high level of stress,
That's the
it will create,
effects.
it'll create an episode. And man, that episode will bring me down for 3 to 5 days.
So one way that I know when you're stressed out is you flop your words more frequent.
Yeah, and that's been
you do it a
happening.
lot.
I've been doing it. Actually,
And you get brain fog.
and that's been happening.
And as a husband, I've
The last couple of weeks, it has been happening.
It's our anniversary, so happy anniversary. And I mentioned at the beginning, we forgot about it.
16 years, guys.
We get caught up in life and we forget. But because I've known you this long and been married to you, I see a different Mari when she's under a lot of stress and we have a lot of things coming at us at once. Like this month has been pretty busy for us.
Yes.
You tend to flop your words and have more brain fog. I caught myself today having one of those days where I couldn't even send a simple text message, and I couldn't get. I in my head I knew what letters I wanted to press.
It just wasn't.
I can blame
registering.
I can blame my fat fingers, or I can just simply say that I was having brain fog because I was trying to multitask and I'm doing different things, and I knew the letters that I wanted to send, but I wasn't getting them correctly on the screen. And I'm glad I didn't hit send because that other person would have been confused. Like, what are you talking about? What are you saying? But so it happens even to what I consider myself a healthy person, right? So it happens to me. Imagine to somebody else who already has challenges with whether it's a learning disability, whatever other challenges you might have, whatever physical challenges or needs you might have, it's already you're kind of behind the curve in that. So a mental reset, a spiritual reset.
Yeah, we talked about physical, mental. What I wanted to share in terms of spiritual, I think is there's different aspects. In spiritual, it could be restoring what was lost or resurrecting what died. It could be rediscovering what your essence of purity, compassion, strength, and purpose. Maybe you need healing any past wounds or filling in any missing pieces, or maybe it's making changes that will lead to you like really living a purposeful and joyful life. I think too, as believers, when we have been a believer for time, right, we could kind of get caught up in the monotony of things, right? So it's just like, okay, the same old. Yes, right, of ministry. And so we also need a reset. Sometimes we need to take a step back and let me bring it back to zero, like the Hebrew word says, and let me go back and, okay, God, what is it that you want me to do? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing right?
To align myself to your will.
Yes, let me align myself to you because I feel like I'm just churning my wheels. I'm not getting anywhere, right?
Man, so good.
Yeah.
But yes, so that's why I mentioned earlier about having hobbies, because I think hobbies can break us from that constant grind, the constant stressors, the constant things. So even us, and I'm going to share, when it comes to ministry, when we have a spiritual reset, what do we do with our deacons? Because that's the ministry that we run at our church, the deacon ministry, right? We oversee that together as husband and wife, because we have the wives that help out the men, the deacons. What do we do?
Fellowship.
We have a fellowship.
At least once a
And
quarter.
then recently, what did we just do with them?
Bowling.
We went bowling. That's all we did. We took them out.
Everyone had such a good time.
Exactly. And that is what a ministry reset, that is what a spiritual reset is that we're away from the church. We're away from having to do Bible studies or get this for the church, or from the grinding of ministry and work.
Just
And instead,
changes
we
it up.
It's kind of the
Different.
as the saying goes, let your hair loose, let your hair down, and just enjoy the wind, right? Kind of one of those things that you think of a convertible,
Yeah.
the top down, and just enjoy. Okay, same concept, right? We went out bowling, just had a great time.
Yeah.
Because guess what's coming? Sunday was coming, so they're gonna be back in the grind of doing things at church and doing ministry. So we had that little ministry spiritual reset.
Another hobby that I was going to share is, when you think about a spiritual reset, is, man, if you've been so caught up, so busy, and you haven't really been in the Word, that
Just
right
getting
there,
in the Word can
getting
be
in the
reset.
Word, yes. That
Yes,
that will
that
give,
is so
man,
true.
that in
That's
itself
good.
will give you a spiritual reset. If you get in the Word,
Reset, recharge, and
yeah,
Reactivate.
That in itself will just, man, talk
Yeah.
about living water right there. It'll just,
man, that's a message. The 3 R's: reset, recharge, and reactivate. Kind of like Lazarus, the
yes.
resurrected.
I know you're going to read scripture. Do you have anything?
So I do have a little scripture, and it's from Isaiah, and it's just Isaiah chapter 54, verse 11.
Okay.
And it says, "O storm battered city, troubled and desolate, I will rebuild you with precious jewels and make your foundations from lapis lazuli. I will make your towers of sparkling rubies, your gates of shining gems, and your walls of precious stones. I will teach all your children, and they will enjoy great peace. You will be secure under government that is just and fair. Your enemies will stay far away. You will live in peace, and terror will not come near you. If any nation comes to fight you, it is not because I sent them. Whoever attacks you will go down in defeat." Man, and this is a city that had just been destroyed, and it's Jerusalem. And it's talking about rebuilding. Right? And you think that's what we're rebuilding on, what we've already accomplished, whether good or bad, right? We
Yes.
got to learn from the bad stuff
Correct.
too. And what can we build on top of that to make it better? Right? So
It might be you're just, again, setting it again or differently, right?
right. And I like the 2 words that it's mentioned twice, and it's something that you mentioned earlier, but the word peace. God is the only one that can give us that peace. And when God's in the picture,
yes.
when we align ourselves to God, you're gonna have peace.
Yes.
No matter, even if you look back and if it looks bad, but moving forward, you're gonna have peace because you're
Amen.
aligned with God, and you reach out to Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ is gonna give you that peace
Amen.
that surpasses all understanding.
Yes.
No matter what the what the rear end looks like,
Yes.
but moving forward, you're gonna have peace, knowing that you're doing the right thing now.
Amen. So
That's
remember,
what a reset
if,
is.
yeah, so if, maybe it's you're overwhelmed, you're going through some sort of challenging situation, reset, reflect, establish, speak, say what's on your mind, share, and express, experiment, change things up, and then trust the process. It takes time.
Trust
and make
God.
sure that you trust God. Man, we hope you share the stream, you like, you subscribe, make sure you comment. We thank you for tuning in to Faith Connections, where we connect you to your
Faith.